The instant torque is amazing. From an actual usable standpoint, it's probably the most fun I've had in any of my project cars. To best describe it, you'll never miss a yellow light again. I've had a number of E30s over the years, probably half a dozen or so. So when it was time to start looking for a daily driver, it had been probably 2 or 3 years since I had been behind the wheel of one, so it was just kind of the logical choice. It was my daily driver for about half a decade. Kind of got tired of the Connecticut winters taking their toll on the car, so retired it from daily duty. Considered doing, the typical turbo route, because why not? Then I decided I wanted to try something a little bit different. I saw some guys had done Tesla swaps on YouTube. They weren't slow, they looked like they were having fun, so took an opportunity to do something new. The motor is what they call a large drive unit out of a Tesla Model S. It's basically a completely self-contained unit, and the entire thing's held in the car by only 3 mounts. So there's no transmission per se, there's no gears, it's just a single direct drive. The motor itself is limited to around 16,000 RPM, and with the tire diameter that should theoretically translate to around 125, 130 top speed. But it's a E30 convertible, so you don't really want to spend too much time up there. Everybody always talks about electric cars being silent. This motor kind of makes its own sort of spaceship Jetson-y sort of a noise, especially from a low-speed takeoff. You hear it, you know it's there, but it's also quiet enough that, being an almost 30-year-old car, you hear all the creaks and rattles of the dash. You hear little things that you would never notice with just the vibration and background noise of a typical motor. To me, I think the biggest challenge in doing EV swaps now is the availability of good components. There's a number of companies out there supporting the conversion market with products, but some of them are less automotive grade than others, so there's quite a variety and range of products that are available. When it comes to battery choices, there's a few go-tos out in the market. You have the Chevy Volt, the Nissan Leaf, and obviously the Tesla cells. A complete Chevy Volt pack is only 16 kilowatt hours, meaning you get about 40 to 50 miles range. This car has 2 complete packs, so we got 32 kilowatt hours of battery. A single Tesla module retails for $1,000 to $1,200. If you want a complete Tesla pack, there's 16 modules. So it gets pretty expensive pretty fast. This car probably has $4,500 worth of battery in it, and at this stage in the game, I'd call that pretty affordable. One of the things that I went into with this build was knowing how fast that battery tech is evolving. These batteries are the hot ticket today. 2 years from now, that's probably not going to be the case, so I made all the battery mounts to be essentially bolt-in. In the front, it bolts to the factory radiator support and factory motor mount pads. In the back, basically a mounting plate that's laid up into the entire space of the trunk. Should I come across a higher performance battery, something lighter, something better suited to the tech improvements, then it's just a simple matter of swapping it out. So the car uses a standard J1772 charging, the same as pretty much every other EV or plug-in hybrid. And eventually I will be implementing what they call a CHAdeMO DC fast charging. It's essentially the same as supercharging for everything other than a Tesla. The Tesla drive is direct drive, the single gear, so there's no need for a traditional shifter. I wanted to keep the analog feels of the car. I wanted to, if somebody looked in the car, I wanted it to look like an E30. I designed basically a 4 neutral reverse switch that basically just uses micro switches to select the gear, and it's all obviously packaged under a factory M-style shift knob. So So the car weighs 2,960 pounds. That is 100 pounds lighter than stock. Weight to distribution of the car is about 60% rear bias, which might sound like a lot, but it basically mimics that of, say, like a Porsche 930. I did want a rear bias on weight because with that much torque on tap, obviously on acceleration, it helps on traction. But under braking, the motor can regen brake hard enough to lock up the tires if you're not careful. So in going to transition from throttle to brake, it basically makes the rear brake first and kind of settles the chassis and prevents it from getting squirrely. In order to fund this project, I sold one of my other project cars, which was a turbo LS E36 M3. That car was definitely faster, but you had to specifically go out with a plan in order to use the power. You'd have to find, you know, a deserted section of the highway in Mexico. And this car, I'd say, while being less, not quite as brutal, the instant torque is amazing. From an actually usable standpoint, it's probably the most fun I've had in, you know, any of my project cars. To best describe it, you'll never miss a yellow light again. You know, all the automakers are dumping billions of dollars into EV development, and I mean, let's face it, this stuff isn't going away anytime soon. The internal combustion motor is always going to be there from the hobbyist performance standpoint, but I think there's probably going to be a point in the future where, you know, if you want a new modern driveline, it's going to have to be electric. Yeah, that's really what led me to this. I wanted to figure out how to have fun with that tech and not lose the experience of driving a classic analog car. You know, at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of people doing this stuff, hoping to get the word out and show that it's not that hard and you can, you know, a guy in his garage can do it with a little bit of planning.